Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we are going to talk about one-point perspective drawings. On the assignment on Canvas, I added one more reference to a book that you can access through the library online. It's a book by Stephanie Travis, Sketching for Architecture and Interior Design. So let's take a look at that book. On chapter number 2, Interiors, there is a section on one-point perspective. Usually, the construction of a one-point perspective requires using a method, and you need to draw a grid for building the perspective. The way that Stephanie is suggesting to use here in her book is to draw what you see without using this technical method. You're gonna learn the technical methods properly on the VSCOM class. So in this case, we are gonna use a much more intuitive approach for this assignment. So the book is very complete. You can check that each step is indicated there with notes. She talks about each one of the elements of the perspective and how to find those elements. The first step to start drawing a one-point perspective is to select a view of your site. A view of your site where you can position yourself perpendicular to a surface. In this case, in this picture, this is a museum, an interior space in a museum designed by Louis Kahn in New Haven. And we are going to start analyzing this picture, this perspective. So I'm going to put a tracing paper. Let's try to understand first. What Stephanie suggests us to do is first to find the ceiling line and the floor line and identify that back wall that is going to serve us as a reference for structuring the perspective. The next step is to find the horizon line. The horizon line is a line that is parallel to the ground and is usually 5 to 6 feet above the ground. So if this bottom line here it's the ground, the horizon line it's probably somewhere here. So I'm estimating that this is between 5 and 6 feet from the ground. The next step is to find the vanishing point on that horizon line. To find that vanishing point, we need to project the diagonals and intersect the horizon line. So we are going to use, for example, this diagonal here or this diagonal here. This one here, this one here. Although the drawing is not perfect, it's not very precise, we can assume the vanishing point is here in the middle. So what is the vanishing point? The vanishing point is the point that we use to project all diagonals, all the diagonal lines on the drawing, which are this, 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 and so on. On the other hand, the lines that are all the vertical lines will be vertical to the horizon line, and only this line, I'm sorry, not only this line, but all the lines that are parallel to the horizon line, like this, like this, like this, will not use. So these lines that are parallel to the horizon line, will not use the vanishing point. Neither the lines that are vertical to the horizon line. Only the lines that we draw as diagonals are going to be projected from the vanishing point. Okay, so more or less, this is the initial analysis that we need to do when we start drawing a one-point perspective. So the back wall is really important here. We can see that this is a almost perfect square shape wall. So we are going to use that to draw the perspective. It's really important to do that. Okay, let's do that. So I place my tracing paper on top of my drawing board. It is really important that you are in front of your site in this, or you have a picture of the site in front of you. In my case, I have a picture of the building right in front of me, so I can look at it and analyze it and with detail. So as I said before, the first step is to draw that back wall. I'm going to use a ruler. Sorry. I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm using a very thin drawing pencil. It is okay to extend the lines. Well, fair enough. I think that looks like a square, more or less. Another detail on the drawing is that that wall is divided in 3 segments that correspond to, each one correspond to one of the floors of the building. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna divide this in 3, and there is a double line there, which is the thickness of each one of the slabs, or at least that's what I'm supposing. But it is on the drawing, so it is important to use that, because I'm going to use those lines as a reference. So the first 2 lines are the first floor, the next second floor, and the last one is the ceiling of the 3rd floor. So the next step is to find the horizon line. So I know the horizon line is like 5 to 6 feet from the ground, and the ground in this case is this line here at the bottom, the base of the rectangle. So according to what I see on the picture, the horizon line will be somewhere here. Okay. Another thing that I will do is, since the view that I have of this interior space is exactly from the middle of the space, so I'm positioning myself right in the middle of the space. So that means the vanishing point will be in the middle. And that matches what we saw in the analysis before, that the vanishing point was in the middle. Okay, right now using the ruler, oops, I will draw the limits of the space. projecting lines from the vanishing point. All right. So let's go to the original picture. Well, you can see we have the back wall, a perfect square shape. It is divided on three parts: the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor. And we're gonna use the references, the reference line of each floor to extend the diagonals that draw the grid on the side walls. So, okay, I'm just confirming. I'm gonna use the ruler again, just to make my drawing less imprecise. Okay, we have all the diagonals on the side of the walls. The next step is to build the vertical lines also on the walls, on the sides. So let's take a look at the original picture again. So we are gonna use our intuition to get the distance of these vertical lines. As I said before, there is a method for figuring out uh, exactly where these lines are, but here in this case we're gonna use we're gonna try to draw what we see on the drawing, meaning we are gonna use proportions to figure out where that line is, or the distance of this line from the back wall. So here by eye I can assume that this distance here, which is A, it's almost like half of the distance between the vanishing point and the limit of the back wall of one of the edges. So let's do that. Let's use that as a reference. So let's go again to our drawing. So I was saying that the distance between the vanishing point and here, this point, so half of that is the distance from this point to the vertical line, the first vertical line. So for me, that is somewhere here. Okay? Let's use a ruler to draw that. Another detail we can see on the drawing is that is the view of one of the columns, of the concrete columns. So we need to draw a double line there. Again, we're trying to draw what we see, so there is no way to measure that. At least there is a technical way for doing that, but we are not doing that. Right now, we are gonna try to estimate the thickness of that. So if this is the thickness of the slab on that point, this one here, sorry, this one here. So I will estimate the thickness of that column is something like this. All right. So let's do the same thing on the other side. Oh, one thing we can do is we can use, so we know that the distance to, or the distance between this column, the distance between this column and this, right, will be the same on the other side because these are completely symmetrical. So what we can do is, let me show you a trick. Using the rule, I will just project this here. Oh, sorry. And that intersection, it's the place where we're going to draw the vertical line. They should look like similar. I think it's a little bit more separated. Okay, great. Now we're going to focus on drawing the cylinder. Just a few comments about the cylinder first. The basics. We know the base, it's something like this, and the top, it's something like that. It's much more open because it's on perspective. Another thing that we know is that this point here, it's apparently aligned with these columns, so that will give us the reference to know where to draw the cylinder. The axis of the cylinder coincides with the vanishing point, and it's vertical. So let's try to draw it. Now this. Okay, I'm gonna hide that picture because we are not, otherwise we'll be cheating. So looking at the picture right in front of me, I I can see that the diameter of that cylinder, it takes something from this point to this point. So I'm gonna draw these two lines. We have this line at the bottom, which is the line that connects the two columns. So we'll use that as a reference to know where the cylinder ends. We know that is the middle of the cylinder. At the top, the picture tells us that the cylinder ends somewhere there. So let's project the edges. Let's project these intersections to the vanishing point, and I'll tell you why. It is always a good idea to draw first the base of the cylinder. In this case, the base of the cylinder will be this square, and the top of the cylinder, if we project that here, will be this square. So those two components will serve us as a reference for drawing the cylinder. Okay, let's do that. More or less is something like that. I need to correct this. The bottom part is actually wider. Okay, so there you go. Let's use a Sharpie to finish this. That's the cylinder. Let's see how. Well, my perspective is it's the drawing that I'm making is bigger than the original, but so far so good. Okay, now that we have all the main elements of the perspective, what I did was I started tracing with a pen on top of my initial perspective to highlight all the main components of the construction. So still we're missing one thing here, which is if we go to the picture, we have these couches here. No, that one. So how do we draw them? So a quick way to do this is to reduce these elements to their basic shape. These are prismatic objects. We can see here on the side that we have a rectangle that is parallel to the back wall. So that means that we can use that. to project the lines to the vanishing point and obtain these diagonals and intersect here. We'll do that by eye to see where that couch ends. Okay, let's try to do that. I have the picture right in front of me. I have an idea of these couches. The furniture is somewhere here. The side of the furniture is made of a rectangle, and that rectangle is projected. The edges of the rectangle are projected to the vanishing point. The length is somewhere like this, something like this. I can also see the couch is something like this. Okay, I will repeat that on the other side. I'm gonna translate this according to the picture. These are symmetrical, and there are two on each side, one next to each other. One more detail here on the floor. Oops. I want to assure that that's perpendicular. All right. And now to finish, let's trace that. To draw the furniture, you follow the same principles. All the lines that are parallel to the base of the back wall will be parallel, and all the lines that are perpendicular to the back wall will be projected from the vanishing point. Vertical lines are vertical. And that's it. That's a 1 point perspective.